Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Wildly Informed. For the first time in the show history, Isha and I coming to you together in the same room. Excited to be here. How's it going tonight, my friend?
Good, man. Good. Yeah, podcasting in person since I think we haven't hung out, talked hockey in person, drank some beers since the draft.
Yeah, that's usually the only time we do it. So cool to do it. And the whole reason I came over here was to drop something off and completely forgot. But
well, that's half the reason. I was also gonna send Brett home with some tourney flow, which I'm excited for you to both dive into that and give us your feedback on the next episode. Yes. And I'm excited for you to try it on tap at Lupulin, because you're going out to Big Beer Week on Saturday, right?
Yes, Saturday I will be out there. Don't know what time yet. I'm going to visit my puppy in the morning, but the breeder is also in Big Lake. So I was like, I don't know how far it is. My same town, it can't be that far away. So we'll probably be there for a while. So if you're at Beerfest, come on over on Saturday. Come on over, say hi. I'll be there, happy to say hello and introduce you to some of my friends and family that'll be there with me.
I think Hoppy is literally there right now as we speak this Wednesday night. And speaking of Big Beer Week, I am sipping on the Barrel God 2025. You're also sipping on a Lupulin beer as well, but this one's coming in, I think, a little bit heavier than yours. This
Yeah.
one, 15.6%.
We'll see if you make it to the show. This one's still 9%, so no slouch.
And so you're a sour guy.
Yes.
This one's
Fairies, yes.
it was a collaboration, Lupulin and another brewery, and I know the daughter
Talking Waters.
of Talking Water. I think the daughter or daughters of the owner of Talking Water designed the can here. So I'm not a big sour beer guy, but this one's more of like a juice bomb than anything.
If you like cran apple juice, you'll love this. So it's very tasty.
There you go. So yeah, sipping on some Lupulin beers. Big shout out to them. If you guys can hit up Big Beer Week, it ends Sunday, but Tourney Flow should still be on tap by the end of the weekend. That's assuming they don't sell out, and they sold out in like 2 weeks last time, which just means it's an awesome beer, and we're stoked to be able to have brewed a beer for the second time with Lupulin for the Minnesota high school hockey state tournament. And we will talk a little bit about the tourney in this episode, Brett, but like, what else do we got? Because we got a jam-packed show here.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the trade deadline. Obviously, the Wild have made a move, I think, since we last recorded. Minor one, we'll talk a little bit about that. Some of the bigger trades that were made, we'll walk through those. As you mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about the state tournament, just a little bit about the Wild news in general. We have some positives on the analytics agenda today. Going to talk some good things about players we haven't maybe talked about a ton on this show, which should be cool. And then for Puck Your Opinions, we have about 5 or 6 opinions that rolled in today on x.com that we'll go through and discuss. So should be a good show. Lots to talk about today. Like I said, this is always like kind of the start of, like, in my opinion, like the best 2 to 3 month stretch of a Minnesota hockey fan's life between state tournament, college tournaments, everything else. So
What are you doing watching on Twitter? Come over to YouTube. Thank you. What's up, Tegrity? What's up, Mateo Hockey from home? Good to see you. All right, let's start with some hockey headlines.
Yeah, so hockey headlines. We'll start trade deadline. So a couple big trades within the last couple weeks here. Starting off, a pretty big one. I think this one went down on Monday, or either Sunday or late Sunday or early Monday, I believe. Chicago sent Seth Jones and a 2026 fourth round pick to Florida for Spencer Knight and a 26 first round pick. A trade that caught me off guard a little bit. I've long been a Seth Jones is overrated type of person. And I think Spencer Knight has a ton of upside. And so, like, for Chicago to net a 26.
Yeah, I think Chicago won that trade personally.
Especially given that Jones wanted out. Like, a lot of times, like, I feel like you can lose leverage in that situation, but
because he said, I wanted to go to Florida. What was the second team?
Yeah, there was like 2 teams too on top of it. So, like, the fact they were able to do that, I mean, very much like a Fiala-esque trade in a way. So, it was an interesting trade for me, but I think one that makes sense in the end for both teams. So, it was cool to see Spencer Knight come out. I think in his first game had like a 40-some save, not shutout, but allowed like 1 goal, 40 saves, got Chicago a win. So I think it's one of those trades that a little bit of sticker shock maybe at first if you're a Florida fan, but I think you're getting a guy that's going to fit right into their, like, number 2, number 3 defenseman type. So one of the bigger ones that we've seen since probably the Rantanen deal.
Taylor saying, I think Seth Jones is an upgrade over Ekblad, who they're not retaining. Ekblad will definitely get overpaid this summer in free agency. I mean, I don't know if he's an upgrade, but I mean, he can definitely fill the void. How could you possibly be good at hockey growing up in Texas? Doesn't make any sense. Oh, and Kyle Davidson definitely cooked. But yeah, that one kind of caught me off guard as well. It's crazy that they were able to facilitate the trade to one of the two teams that he wanted to go to,
and get a good return.
Yeah, with the contract that he had, that surprised me.
So they get another first, obviously, to add to their prospect pool, and then they get potentially their goalie of the future in Spencer Knight. So he's still pretty young. I think he's like 23ish years old. So there's a lot of runway for goalies. Like a lot of goalies don't really make it until they're 25, 26. So. Good move for them, but I think it's still like I don't know. It doesn't accelerate their rebuild or anything. They're still going to be bad for a while, but they have another piece in place.
No,
unfortunately,
sure. More trades.
Yeah. So the next big one, staying inside the Central Division, the Colorado Avalanche acquired, I believe it was Jimmy Vesey and. We have one off here. I think he might have got deleted in our outline.
Oh yeah, that was one.
They got Jimmy Vesey and Ryan Lindgren, and like there was a bunch of other like draft picks and kind of some smaller names involved, but nothing like too crazy. But it's just like the takeaway for me was just like the downfall of the New York Rangers this year. Like,
yeah, and it's weird because like the roster didn't really change at all. It's just like whatever was clicking last year just wasn't working this year.
It's just age, I think. Like it's a lot of these guys that are. I think there's this, for me anyways, it seems like there's kind of this plateau like between like 30 and 33 where like players will kind of have one really big year and then it's a really steep drop off.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of them like Zibanejad, Kreider, like all of these guys kind of dealt with that and, they have one of the best goaltenders in the world, like if the team's not scoring and you can't drive play, and I think as you even saw in the Four Nations, Adam Fox has taken a little bit of a step back this year, so... it could be one of those things too, where it's kind of like the Wild, where it's one down year, you get a high pick, you come back in a year later, and it's New York. There's always going to be guys that want to go. There's free agents, and
oh yeah, like they're New York is never bad for long. Even when they announce that they're tearing it down and rebuilding, it's like 2 years later they're already back in the playoffs, and here we are. I mean, it's interesting because like there's a lot of guys on the team who are still putting up points, but they're just not winning games.
Yeah, I think they end up in like a lot of shootouts that they just don't seem to be able to win. So I don't know if there'll be any moving out.
And Rempe is just knocking out teeth and taking heads off. So
yeah, ridiculous. But yeah, so I don't know if they're done yet or not. But it's just kind of like a weird like they're not really treating like any like big names, but it's a lot of these like ancillary depth pieces that typically like a team like that you would think would be those are the players they're going to add at the deadline, as Colorado did. But yeah, and then.
Speaking of,
the final one here, this was like a crazy trade, so I couldn't even like write it all down. Tampa Bay acquires from Seattle Oliver Bjorkstrand, Yanni Gourde, and Kyle LeCoin with a pick, and then there was like gymnastics beyond belief for like the picks that came back. There's like conditions, and they're like top 10 protected, and like all this stuff, and then like Mikey Eismock goes over the deal, but. We were talking a little bit right before we jumped on here. Like, I think like there was this consensus, at least it seemed to me on X, that like Tampa Bay kind of got fleeced by Seattle in the deal.
Yeah, but I don't believe that at all. I think,
and I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I think like you get Bjorkstrand and Gourde like sick. Those are two roster players, third line players who can play second line, guys who are gonna put up points. Like for Tampa, who are not just dominating the division right now and who need some extra pieces for a playoff push, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and
it's not like they gave up much to acquire them.
Yeah, and I think you look at it from their perspective, like they're looking at they have another window. Like you have a guy in Victor Hedman who's probably has 1 or 2 good years left before he probably starts to decline, and they feel like they have a roster that's built to win now, so they don't care about a first round pick. That's 2 years out because this is their window. And I think going out and grabbing a guy like Bjorkstrand, I think he's really underrated. Like, you look at the teams he's played for, he's on a pretty mediocre Columbus team for a while. Like, Seattle obviously kind of had the good year out of the gate, but they've been okay. But, I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to help their top 6, probably be able to help on their power play. And then, of course, bringing back a familiar face in Yanni Gourde, who I think was on both of their cup teams.
And had his best years there. But, like, yeah, man, we just brought up Bjorkstrand's stats here. Like, on bad teams, he's put up 40 to 50 points. Like, imagine him going to Tampa and actually being able to, like, be on a line that gets
pretty consistent.
A
like
good matchup,
20 goal
right?
scorer too. Like he can bring the offense. So, and I think he's a right shot too. And I think that was a big need for them. They were looking for, I think, someone kind of on their first power play, meant to kind of replace Stamkos on that right side to give someone opposite Kucherov. So I think he fills that need for them. And then obviously getting Gordon there is their third line center. So I think, you have a team now in Florida, the Florida Tampa Bay battle again in the playoffs this year. I think it's going to be really fun because they've got two powerhouse teams there.
Alex saying LeBron just reported the Wild and others are interested in Brock Nelson, but I have no idea how we could get him with the lack of cap space we have. It's the same thing. Like, and there's everyone's saying like, okay, like Brock Besser is going to come back here. It's like, well, if he's not accepting what Vancouver's offering to him, like, I don't know if the Wild can afford either of these guys.
And like we have this schedule for the Wild, but we can just roll this in here. Like I think the reason that the Wild, I think the reason they went for Nyquist is because I think there's still a lot of speculation as to whether or not Lou Lamoriello actually wants to trade Brock Nelson. Russo mentioned this on his show too, and
Nyquist familiar here, actually played well here.
Yeah.
Right?
So
like still doing well, despite getting up there in age.
I'll take Nyquist over Nelson. Like I just it's a household name. Like he's had some good years, but again, as we were just talking about the Rangers, like he's one of those guys on the wrong side of 30. Like when there was a lot of heat around it kind of in December, like I looked at his stats. I don't know what it's like since then, but he had like one goal and his like in the last like 16 games or something that he had played at one point. But I like Nyquist. He's had a tough year with Nashville, but
everyone has. So.
Yeah, like their whole team has.
Well, and even then, 21 points in 57 games, like that's not even that bad. The year before, 75 points.
He had a huge year, and then
played well with Columbus when he was there.
Yeah.
How old is he now? 35. Okay, he's not that. I thought like maybe like 37. Like,
yeah, I think like
just a consistent player. Like, throughout his whole career. Like the only down years are years we played half a year because of injury. So you're not gonna blame him for that.
Yeah.
And actually has, surprisingly enough, like quite a bit of playoff experience.
Yeah,
77 games.
Yeah, and I thought his stint with the Wild, he was arguably one of our best players in that playoff series when they had
almost
him.
Point per game.
Yeah, like he was there pretty much one player that was consistently producing.
He only played 3 games. That's right. Holy crap.
Yeah, because he had that shoulder surgery. 5 points in those 3. Like he had what is that? 8 points in 9 games with the Wild.
Let's go.
So like pretty solid.
Yeah.
I think the need was there. Like you could just tell. Like once Boldy and Kaprizov went down, or not Boldy, Ek and Kaprizov. Once they went down, you get to see this team was a little bit starved on offense, and they needed to do something. And it sounds like there was too much hemming and hawing from Adler's about Nelson. I think to make the money work for Brock Besser was too difficult, so they had to kind of like, all right, what's the next option? And I think, it was a little bit of a reach for me, the second round pick, but to get that salary cap retained, like you're gonna have to bump up year round. So I think like ideally it's a third round pick they do for that trade, but I think it was a 2026 second, so not even this year's draft, next year's draft. So, but as we talked about on this show before too, like there comes a point where you can only have so many prospects and picks in your system. They can't all play. It's like, why not get a guy in here that could potentially help you this year, help hold down the fort until you hopefully get these other 2 guys back.
Hey, Hoptics, one can dream. One can dream.
Yeah, like I wouldn't rule out, like I think that's another thing too. Like there was obviously a lot of heat around Besser and Nelson with the Wild, but if you're the Wild, like do you want to pay this premium bidding war price if you think you have a good shot to sign one of them in the summertime? So without giving up any assets, right?
Well, you even were talking about this.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence. Like I don't mind Dylan Cousins the player, but the reason I'm not really interested is because an acquisition of Dylan Cousins probably means an exit of Marco Rossi.
And it's like, you got a 70 to maybe even 80 point guy in-house that you've drafted, developed, like
who's done
nothing wrong. Why are you shipping him out?
Done everything the team has asked him to do, like skipped his sister's wedding in condition, like and I think like the biggest thing we talked about this, I think last week, like the injuries plaguing this team. The guy hasn't missed a game the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, he's healthy.
No, and I know like the ceiling for Dylan Cousins is high. He's only 24 years of age. Like we haven't seen the best of him yet, but it's like we haven't even seen the best of Marco Rossi yet. And like, okay, you're gonna get a bigger hockey player. Like I'm sick of hearing that in this day and age. Marco Rossi plays like he's fucking 6 foot tall, even though he's tiny, right? Like, and he's been the healthiest one out of all the forwards this year.
Yeah, and reported today that he is playing through an injury. Russo on his podcast. I think it's a wrist injury. I do remember there was a game probably about a month ago, and I think it was like end of a period, and they were like kind of walking on the tunnel, and Rossi was like high-fiving guys, and his glove off, and I saw like his wrist was like all taped up, and I was like, I wonder if he's hurt. But and it sounds like Russo reported today that he has been playing through an injury that it sounds like a lot of other players maybe wouldn't have played through. So I mean, you have that, like, and he's been great for them this year.
Oh yeah, he's been one of the best players.
So
51 points, 21 goals in 62 games. Like what? Why are we talking about sending this guy out the door? Especially when you don't have to pay him the sun, moon, and stars yet because this is his first big year. So extend him for $7 million a year and see what happens after that.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets tricky. What does he and his agent think he's worth? I think this cap increase makes comparables so hard. And we talked about that when that news broke. So it'll be an interesting offseason. I saw a question there about Nyquist being extended. I don't think so. I think he's too old, and they have probably their eyes on other guys. Maybe if
there's just so many you want to give hate, you want to give height, you want to give Yurov, you want to give there's so many you mentioned earlier in the show. There's so many guys in the system right now who may or may not pan out, but we got to keep giving them opportunities. And you can fetch a Nyquist mid-season again if the guys don't pan out, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe a situation where if they strike out on some of these other guys and they want to add a veteran forward, maybe then they do it. But right now, I don't see it as someone that they'll do it. But to get back to the Cousins thing, I don't mind Cousins the player. I like the upside. I don't like him at the expense of Marco Rossi because I think other than their size, I don't think there's a drastic difference there. You have a young, promising center. I don't know. I don't see much of a difference other than the size, but. We know that's something that Bill Guerin obviously covets. So
yeah, no, and I get what Tegrity's saying. Take advantage of Buffalo when you can before others. But if you already have that piece, why do you really want? Because it's Rossi for Cousins, and maybe there's a bunch of the fans who are I like Cousins better, and that's fair. I'm not one of them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd have to probably look a little bit more, but the way it stands now, I'm I don't want to say I'm not a fan. Because it's just it's what we'd have to lose to make it happen. I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah,
I don't think the move makes you better. I think it's at best it's probably a ladder move. At worst, it might make you worse.
Yeah,
I don't know. So
I'd only move Rossi for an Eichel level center.
Yeah,
there you go. And is Cousins that yet? We don't know, right? Yeah. Do we think Rantanen will be traded? We kind of talked about that last week.
Yeah, I really don't know. It hasn't worked in Carolina. He doesn't seem happy there, but at the same time, you gave up Martin Nyquist to acquire him. So what can you get back? And I think you're not going to get back the package that you gave up to get him. You're not going to get an equivalent package back. So if you're Carolina, do you just punt it? I don't know. I think Tulsky's a great GM, and I think it's going to take a really good offer for them to do it because at the end of the day, you're under contract for that team, and there's still incentive for him. He's playing for his next contract, and if he shows hey, you left Colorado, you stunk, went to the playoffs, stunk again, you just Sam Darnold yourself out of $3 million, $4 million bucks, right? So I think there's still incentive for him to be great for his next contract, even if it isn't in Carolina. He still wants to prove I still got the juice, I can play anywhere. So I lean no. There's always this these networks have to do it to drive views to their trade deadline shows and stuff, and he's kind of the big fish out there right now. But if I'm Carolina, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, honestly, I used to be so excited for the trade deadline shows. I used to fake being sick in high school and elementary school to watch them, and now they don't even matter because all the trades happen the week prior. It's happening now. It's really. It's really July 1st. That's the big day. And in Canada, for us, that's, you guys have 4th of July. We have July 1st, right? So it's just you're partying and watching it regardless, right? That's when you start drinking and snacking throughout the day, watching the free agent frenzy, and then get to the festivities and fireworks at night. But I feel trade deadline didn't necessarily used to be on that level of excitement and event as a hockey fan, but it definitely was something we looked forward to. Now it's I really don't care as much because the big names are usually moved prior, or
or they just don't end up getting moved.
Yeah, or they just don't end up getting moved. I can't remember when there was the big. And there was just a big splash that was super memorable and worked, right?
Yeah, right. And that's always the thing too. It's I feel there's always this overpayment at the deadline. We'll talk about it and puck your opinions, but there's an insane offer about something Toronto should do, and I was that's insane.
Yeah.
There's still, I think, Yoel Armia in Montreal and Scott Lawton are both reportedly the ask is a first round pick, and these are like Freddie Gaudreau type centers. Like they're fine players, but like these are not guys that are worth.
The market always like it changes every year. Like,
Yeah,
I don't.
it's
I
really
don't
weird.
get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. Like what some players like net. You're like, oh, you got that guy for that. That's it. Like right before we jumped on, Tommy Novak got traded from the Predators to the Penguins for like Michael Bunting. Like I'd much rather have Tommy Novak personally. I think he's a great player. A little bit of Minnesota bias, obviously, because he played here, but high school, anyways. But yeah, so I think there'll be like an exciting trade or two in the next couple days with that. I'm assuming it's usually like a 2 p.m. Central Time deadline, so there's still time for things to work out, and we'll see. But like I think what makes this year interesting is there's so many teams that are like right on the bubble. Mm-hmm. Like there's kind of like these top like guaranteed. It seems like five, 6 teams in each conference, and then each of them has this like logjam of like 5 to 6 teams.
Yep.
So it's what do you truly believe about your team? Where are you at in your like? What does your prospect pool look like? What is trading away a first and second this year? What does that do to your team now 3-4 years down the road? If a team all of a sudden has won 4 games in a row, like do you reward that by adding a player? So I think that's a lot of the stuff I think that's going on right now. It'll kind of like will guide what happens in these next whatever like 36-ish hours or so, whatever we're at now.
So Trav, he like theoretically he could go back to Russia if he wanted to, but he's, I imagine, just saying yes to the assignment, knowing that in a perfect scenario he would still be with the team.
Yeah, and there is an injury away from being called right back up. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's keep going, guys. Keep the chat coming. We'll catch up with some of your comments here in a bit.
Yeah, chat's going crazy.
Yeah, no, we love it. We love it. We'll get back
awesome.
to we'll get back to the chat here in a sec. But let's fire through some more of these headlines.
Yeah, one of the big headlines today, and this will have some ramifications and puck your opinions too. But the Devils announced today Jack Hughes out for the season.
His brother's out for the rest of the season too in Vancouver.
Oh, Quinn is too. Yep. I did not see that news. But yeah, so 2 of them out for the season now. Jack with shoulder. What's Quinn? Do you know? You didn't say.
Lower body injury.
Yeah, so he had shoulder surgery, out for regular season playoffs. They expect him to be back for training camp, which is like a huge blow to them because the Devils have, I think, done a lot of things right this year. They've got much better coaching from Sheldon Keefe and like seem poised to kind of like have a nice comeback season. And then they just lost their Kaprizov for the season. So that's a tough blow for them. We'll talk more about the implications of that injury a little bit later on. So I don't want to spend too much time there. Outside of the NHL news, there was another unfortunate and sad report.
Fucking Hockey Canada, dude.
From Rick Westhead, the Peel Regional Police, so I believe that's like the Greater Toronto area, confirmed its Special Victims Unit investigating an alleged sexual assault case involving 8 former Mississauga Steelheads players back in 2014. And I think kind of like the thing that stuck out for me, Michael McLeod, who's also a part of that World Junior team, was potentially one of the players once again involved. So this would have happened, I think, like 2 or 3 years prior to that or something.
Which, like, in April, the other, like, gang sexual assault case is going down in, I think, Supreme Court in Canada. That's going down in April. And it's just, like the fucking pattern doesn't stop here. Like this is it's not exactly the same, but it's like gang sexual assault again here. TSN and Rick Westhead reporting here. I have the article up. A quote from the victim who gave permission for them to disclose her name, and Marie.
I think it was a middle name is what I saw.
Okay,
so it's like that's her middle name, but yeah.
So she was 22 at the time, dating one of the 19-year-old players on the team. And she said she was invited to hang out with him and some of the other players to like watch a movie, and him and her like snuck out into the bathroom to fool around. She said, and I quote, "I was taken into the bathroom, and that's when the player who invited me over began to have sex with me, started sexual acts. They never closed the bathroom door fully, and the next thing I know, more players started coming in. The players started watching, and they started taking their turns doing whatever they want." It goes on in detail. I'll share the link in the chat here if you guys want to see this. But again, just like, what the fuck, man? This is like, stories like this keep coming out of Hockey Canada dating back to like 2000. Like there's still an ongoing investigation from the 2000 World Junior team, right? Yeah. Where like players like Marc-Andre Fleury were on that team, for example, right? Yep. And I'm like, look, I'm not making any accusations at all. I'm just saying like there were notable names on that team as well. And it's just like, man, there's just some entitled fucking pricks out of Hockey Canada who are just like,
and it's
just think like the world revolves around them and they can get away with anything, literally anything, at such like a young age, and it's such like a poison for their development. And they're in an environment which clearly doesn't, I don't know, shut this down. I don't want to say encourages it, but like at this rate, like what the fuck, man?
Yeah, and like I think like when I've said it before, like hockey has a culture problem. Like this is what we're talking about. Like especially like I'm not saying Michael McLeod is guilty in this. Like let's still let the courts run their process. But the fact that like there's potentially a guy that did it once and got away with it, he thought he could do it again and get away with it. So that's the culture thing. Like you have to stop it at some point. And I'm really glad these victims have the confidence now to come forward and talk about this stuff. But just sad to see that this is another another
just
situation
again, man. It's just again and again and again, and it's just like it's not just like a one-off with one player. It's just like
it's never one. It's always a group too, which is
just weird and fucked up. Like not that any of it's okay, but it's just like what the fuck, man? Why is it the same scenario? Like, so yeah, we'll continue to keep tabs on this, and then obviously I'm very much invested in the trial that's coming up in April, where there's like. I mean, there's even some players who are involved who are like, I think like 2 of them are playing in Russia. One is straight up just like working construction. Carter Hart's like looking for work, and I think like practice with like junior team for a little bit and like a college team in Canada. So like, it's just gonna be interesting to see what goes down in that case as well. Ovi scores again in lighter news. Let's fucking go.
There we go. Yeah, that'll be getting closer and closer to potentially breaking that record. In St. Paul. Speaking of St. Paul. There is a big tournament going on there right now. That is
Shout the Tourney Flow
hockey tournament. Class A began play today. Unfortunately, not as great of a first round as we've seen in years past. Orono got a big win earlier today, 7-2 over Northfield, and then St. Cloud Cathedral. I think also beat up pretty good on their opponent who. Montemedi, I think they beat that. I think it was 3-0 in that one as well. So, and then in the evening session, Hibbing, the number 1 seed in the tournament, beat up pretty good on Laverne. It's like I think that game was 7-zip, and then I believe right now the 4-5 game, East Grand Forks and Northern Lakes are playing. I don't have a score update because obviously we're live here, but I think. The first round is always a little bit iffy, especially in Class A, because I think there's these they're kind of these like usually 4 to 5 teams that are really really good. A lot of them play AA schedules, and you get some of these smaller schools, especially from the southern part of the state, that just aren't quite there yet. But I think still important for those schools to be there, be represented, to have fun. So, some pretty good flow and different things out of the tournament so far. But I've had it up all day on my second monitor while I was working and stuff. So, and then obviously the big tournament starts tomorrow with Class AA. Awesome slate there. First session, we have Stillwater, number 2 versus number 7 Andover. Number 3, St. Thomas against number 6 Shakopee. You have number 1 Moorhead versus number 8 Lakeville South to start off the evening session. And then the big 4-5 Rogers and Edina. So should be a really fun tournament. I know you're planning to go on Friday. I'll be there Friday. To watch some of the games and stuff there. So again, if you guys are around at the X on Friday, shoot us a note on Twitter. Come say hi. Happy to meet up with you guys.
Hell yeah. I literally just found this on the fly too, so this is perfect. Just we were talking about it. Get some tourney flow. Hope if it continues to sell well, hopefully they just keep bringing it back year round or distribute it.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be sweet.
Hell no. Oh wait, I think Pavel Zach would be a great add to the Wild. Center score size, a lot to like.
Yeah, I think that's a good transition here to the last parts of the Wild. Obviously, we talked, added Gus Nyquist out for the second. The other like minor league deal they made, Tyler Madden added in exchange for, I think, Joseph's, I think it's Sacconi, I don't know how you say it. So like an AHL deal there. But like it's fun to like the Wild should go add this guy, but I think the reality is like they really can't. Largely in part to the fact that as of now, this could change within the next 24 or 48 hours, but they expect that Drew Larrick-Shanek, Kirill Kaprizov, and Jonas Brodin will all be back before the end of the regular season, which means they can't go into LTIR. And I think right now they actually have like negative cap space, like they're working on like accruing space so that when those guys do come back, they come in under the cap. It's the reason why they had to send down Marat Huzzinov and Liam Ugrin. Like they don't have any money. So the only way they can like add money is like money's got to go out. But like a lot of the guys you could move, like are you really going to get anything if you move John Merrill or Declan Chisholm or Ryan Hartman is a full no move.
It's worth having them available to play.
Yeah, like Gaudreau, Johansson, I think have no move.
It's worth having the depth.
Yeah,
honestly, and that's what this team. They don't have necessarily the highest level depth, but they have depth, and that's why they're here this season. Yeah, with all the injuries that they faced. Yeah,
like I would love it if they could add another like middle six forward somehow, but like I don't see a way they can do it right now. I do. Chisholm is probably like the one I do wonder about a little bit right now. Like I think especially like knowing they really were impressed with what Jiricek accomplished, and if he becomes your kind of your number 7 here on out. Again, I love the way Chisholm's played. Like you and I have campaigned a little bit for him to, maybe even get like a 1-year extension. But, you have Jiricek who could probably fill in. They've liked what they've seen out of Merrill and Bogosian. You have Zev Buyam who potentially could play before the end of the year, depending on Denver's season. Denver so like does, if there is like an expendable asset, it is probably one of those bottom 3 defensemen. Probably not Bogosian. The Wild team to have too much faith in him, his ability to play the right side. So like if there is a move, to me it's probably like a Lauko, a Declan Chisholm, or a John Merrill, and then maybe kind of another piece. Joseph Nowariak, I don't know if he's in the chat today. Sometimes he's in and out. He would love for the Wild to go after Nico Sturm. I would be elated by that. I love Nico Sturm, but again, like it'd have to be money in, money out. And if you're San Jose, like you probably really aren't looking to add. Maybe they are into like a Declan Chisholm type. Maybe that is maybe that's a fit there. But that's totally just throwing stuff against the wall. I have no idea if there's interest in that sense. But yeah, like as much as I'd like to see them do something else, just because it's fun, it gives us things to talk about. I don't see it as likely.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh yes, last thing you wanted to talk
yeah, and like the last thing I just want to talk about too is like, you kind of look at these like the Wild kind of got a sneaky ad a little bit in Vinny Hinostroza. Like
he's been good.
Yeah, like we talked when they acquired him. Like I think this guy probably has a little bit more in him than what he's shown. Like I didn't expect like top power play, like filling in on the top line. Like this guy has come in now. Is it 3 goals now? I think
4 goals. I think
4 goals since coming over. I think he's picked up an assist or 2. Like.
Just straight up 4 goals.
4 goals, but like I think there's like 3 of them have been a result of him just being right on the doorstep. Like this is not a big guy either. He's like 5'10", but like he's like somehow taken over Eriksson Ek's like net front spot on the power play, and it's working.
He's put up points before. I mean, 25 and 50 with Chicago, and they weren't a good team. Arizona, almost 40, 5 of the city. Like he's put up points on bad teams, which I think we've talked about. Like put him on a team that's like, I don't want to say Minnesota's buzzing, but like a team that's like competitive, and like let's see what he can do.
Yeah, and I think like just what I like about his game is I just think he's versatile, right? Like we've seen him play I think on every line now. Like I think he's played first, second, third, and fourth line. He's played on the power play. Like he's just kind of this utility knife player, and I think he adds this element of speed that the Wild, not to say they don't have, but like he is noticeable every time he's out there, like just flying around. Like the underlying numbers overall look pretty good. Like he's not getting like caved in his minutes like some other players on this team currently are. Like, so is he a deadline ad via waivers? Maybe, but much like I think Chisholm last year, like a savvy claim to put in, get a guy for nothing that's making an impact. So like he is a guy that I wonder, like, with some of these names coming off the books this year, like Johansson, with his best buddy Ryan Hartman, like with him being such a short leash, like I still maintain, I think we'll do a show or we'll do something end of the year, like bold off-season predictions. I think one of mine is that Hinostroza inks an extension of some kind with the Wild. I think he's a perfect guy for your bottom 6. That's like, hey, if you need to move him up in a pinch, you can. He's probably a power play 2 guy when they're healthy. Like adds a little bit of that juice that you need, a little bit of speed. So I've liked what I've seen him. Obviously, like we've seen guys come in like Johansson, obviously last year, or was it 2 years ago when they went off with Boldy? Like he looked really good too in his short stint. But
I mean, there's always players who'll come in and like look it off the bat, and I agree. But like the fact that like whether he's scoring or not is noticeable, kind of like Huzzinov has been all year, been noticeable, just hasn't been getting it done on the offensive side of things. Like I'm still happy that a player comes in and shows more good than bad, right? And like it's the hardest thing to do in the NHL is score, right?
Yeah, and I think just like the versatility for me is really what kind of selling a point is. Like you can play this guy anywhere, and he just kind of gets the job done. Like he's not nothing elite. Like I don't think he's gonna like all of a sudden become this like amazing top 9 forward that puts up 40 points or anything. But
nah, Tony, Freddie's legit, man. We're keeping him here. Let's fucking go. Let's go.
Speaking of Freddie, I think that's a nice transition here into our analytics agenda.
Let's get to the analytics agenda.
Yeah, so in the analytics agenda, Freddie Gaudreau will be a part of it, but we're going to start with his line that was assembled about, I think it was about 3 games ago, I think starting in Colorado, and like this line to me has looked admirable. Like, have they been amazing? The second half of last night, no, but the first like 7.5 periods before that, they were looking really good. So like, obviously with Kaprizov, Eriksson out, like...
I just think Gaudreau overall this season,
Yes.
14 goals, 29 points, like he might even hit 40 points this year.
Yeah, and like I think...
And that's Freddie Gaudreau ceiling, like 30 to 40 point Freddie Gaudreau is what you want, right?
Yeah, and I think like the Wild were in dire need of someone to step up with Kaprizov and Eriksson out. Like we talked with the offense struggling, and it seems like this second line has maybe found a little bit of something now. Across the last 3 games at 5-on-5, they're averaging about 12 minutes on the ice per game, outscoring opponents 4-0 in those games, controlling over 50% of the expected goals, a little bit under on the Corsi share, but the Wild, that's kind of been their MO, is they allow a lot of perimeter shots. So a lot of time their Corsi metrics aren't quite as good, but you look there, the next stat down, that high danger chance is 62.5% control over those, and like it's just such this like Frankenstein line between Freddie Gaudreau, Marcus Johansson, who quietly has 6 assists in the last 6 games, 5 of those primary assists.
Coming back from concussion.
Yeah, coming back from concussion. This is since the Four Nations. Like he's been 5 primary assists is admirable.
Yeah. And Zuccarello's just been fine. He's been fine all year.
Yeah, and I think like he was in a little bit of a slump, and I think we're seeing like we saw some plays. I think especially last night in both those goals, he was a big part of those goals. So I think now if Boldy and Rossi can get going on that top line with Nyquist, now you have the second line playing well, and all of a sudden you have this top 6 that can maybe at least get you about 500 until hopefully some of these guys start coming back. But and then this specifically, I think Freddie, like he, like as you were just alluding to, like his last, I chose 16 games. It's not, there's no really like rhyme or reason to it, but I was just kind of looking at my PCS metrics, and there was just kind of this stretch. Like I think he's only been negative in my that score like twice, but he's been really good the last 16 games. 7 goals in that stretch. That's the most on the team. Picked up 5 assists in the process, 12 points. That's tied for first on the team, I believe, with Boldy. Like he's shooting a decent amount.
He's on pace to get the most goals he's ever had with the team.
Yeah.
19 was his high. He's at 14 right now.
Yeah, and like the play driving numbers overall look fine. Like he's just been like nothing like groundbreaking, but he's kind of been this steadying presence. And like I think we're kind of seeing this like version of Freddie Gaudreau. And I think we like early in the season when he had that really good stretch kind of start there, we talked about like this is exactly what you want out of a $2 million bottom 6.
Yeah, I don't know why Tony's in like the rush to move a guy who you're gonna get this out of him if he's not injured for the next 2 years. Like, why wouldn't you want a guy who's not super expensive, who's gonna be a solid third liner who can even play fourth line minutes and still score for you? He's been one of the more consistent guys in the bottom 6 scoring, and you're paying him exactly what he's worth, right?
$2 million, and with the cap going up,
I don't understand. Yeah,
that's chump change with the cap going up.
Yeah, like the critique on Johansson, I get it. Right, but like Freddie, I don't get it.
Freddie has more goals in the last 16 games than Johansson has all season.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I think
like I'm not saying that there's not value there, but like why? Okay, you're moving for what?
Yeah,
for a guy who maybe can't help you and play this type of game in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if the Wild tomorrow like went out and acquired someone that was like had Freddie Gaudreau's stats but had like a different name and face, I think fans would be very excited about that.
Yeah.
And I think like, so that's why I wanted to bring up specifically in addition to the second line, like just Freddie, like, because a lot of times like he has the occasional flashy play. Like he had a really nice, I think on the, I think it was ended up being his goal the other night where he kind of stick handled around a guy, and then I think kind of banked out the defenseman's skate. But like we see these flashes of skill. It's like he has.
Well, he's got for I mean, what is he now? 31. He's not old, but like he's fast.
Yeah, and he's I think probably their best faceoff man. I don't know the specific faceoff stats, but either 1 or 2 I think behind Eriksson Ek. He's been one of their more. I mean, their penalty kills have been great, but I think he's one of their better penalty killers.
Yeah, I mean, unless the team's overpaying for him, I don't think you shop him, right? Yeah. I think you listen to offers, but I think you go like, no, he's one of our most consistent guys at $2 million right now.
Yeah, so I think he's played well. So I think it's just nice to kind of see some of these, we're starting to see some guys like a Johansson, like a Gaudreau. I think Declan Chisholm's had a nice stretch of games here. Like some guys stepping up, and now if, the bigger guns like Rossi, Boldy, hopefully Nyquist, if these guys can get going, like maybe this team can start to kind of right this little bit of a funk they've been in since they lost all these guys to injuries again.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, and when the young guys are ready, Tony, like Hartman is available to be moved, Gaudreau maybe at that time will be available to be moved. Johansson's not going to be this team long term. Like Billy Guerin said at the start of this year, if he had to make room for Riley Heidt, he was going to. He wasn't ready, so it's like it is what it is. I think there's bigger fish to fry right now than worrying about whether it's the right time to move Freddie Gaudreau or not, in my opinion anyways.
Yeah, and there was a comment in the chat there about like Freddie being injured all last season. I think we talked about that the last time we kind of spotlighted
and like
him.
I'll eat crow in that too. I was overcritical last year without taking in all the context.
Yeah, but I think now that you have the context of what he did before that injury and now what he's doing this year, I think you can safely look at last year now and be like, yep, he was injured. Last year's the anomaly, not the norm.
Yeah, because we have his stats up here right now. It's like first year with the Wild, 44 points. Second year, 38. Then it was the 15. Yeah, and then now back 29 and 62. It's like, okay.
And what happened that year? He was injured.
Yeah. So it's like, okay.
And like the 44-point year was, I think he spent a good chunk of that season playing with Kevin Fiala. Obviously, you're going to have a little bit more production in that sense. But like, I think if he's your third or fourth line guy and he's contributing 30, 35 points, you're really happy with that for $2 million.
Hoptics, it's if Kirill wants him back, he's coming back. I think it's less about like Billy Guerin's plan and more about like whatever keeps Kirill smiling. This is like Chris Kunitz, Jack Johnson for Sidney Crosby type of thing.
Yep.
All right. Okay, let's get to, and you guys can keep commenting in the live chat because this next segment is like your guys's. But let's get to Puck Your Opinions, where Brett, you actually sent out a tweet asking. People for their hot takes, for their opinions. What else?
Yeah, I said just like give me your most insane hockey related takes, and we got a couple of them here. So
all right, here we go. Puck Your Opinions.
I just want to say, Puck Your Opinion.
Yeah, so shout out to everyone who sent us stuff. I haven't checked if there's been anything new here since we jumped on, but we'll start here. Mod of the show, Mateo.
Also, editor of this channel. Thank you so much, Mateo.
Wondering if, and this is what we talked about with the Jack Hughes injury, should the saying the Devils should be limited sellers now, naming a couple of their players there, Jake Allen, their goaltender, Brett Pesce, Dawson Mercer, as all guys they could ship out, potentially get some good assets in return. I think before the Jack Hughes injury, obviously that's a pretty bold take, but I think,
because they were third in the Metro. Yeah. But now it's like, fuck, are they going to make any noise even if they squeeze in?
Right, and you had the Blue Jackets all of a sudden playing really good hockey.
I still can't believe the Capitals have 86 points. Man.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's crazy. Just because of how bad they were last year, and the roster's pretty much the same.
Yeah, so I think I agree with this take. I think to Mateo's point here, it's like, I think. There's good players here. There's not game-breaking players. I think Mercer's going to be a really good player in this league. I think a really quality top six type of guy. I've always loved Brett Pesce's game, and I think anytime you can move a goalie at the trade deadline, you're probably going to get more than what he's worth. And I think we had another one here in the chat. I think it might have been from also a friend of the show, Dan Bradley. Who mentioned Jake Allen as well and saying they should send him to Edmonton for whatever they can get. And, if there's a need for Edmonton right now, I think goalie's for sure the one there. So, I agree here. I think this is, it's a weird spot for the Devils to be in. It sucks, but, how far do you think you can realistically go when you've lost Jack Hughes for the season? If it was a Wild situation where he's going to come back, then no, I don't think you do it. But
because they're not insanely deep, right?
No, I don't think so. They have a very good top line. They've got a okay middle six, and I think they lack a little bit of depth. But
Bratt's had an awesome season.
Yeah, he's really.
He's done okay.
Yeah, because I think their top line has been Hughes and Bratt. And then I think their secondary is Hischier and Meyer.
They're not a bad team, but it's just like, yeah, you lose the top guy, and
like I said, like they lost their Kaprizov, and like they still have their Ek. But like if we knew Kaprizov was done for the season, like I don't think we're talking about the Wild being buyers at all.
No.
Like, but next one here, this one from I think Skeptic Cat, I think is what I will read that as. I think we've talked a little bit about this. Is the NHL should never have an All-Star game again?
No, and they should only have 4 or just the nations and add Russia and maybe Czech.
Or even just give the players a goddamn break. Like,
yeah.
Like honestly, if I'm getting a best on best every other year, and the years like that it's not happening, like, if those guys are just getting a break, like.
I mean, we already have these fucking how many outdoor games we have a year? Like, there's already stuff that they're doing outside of just like you're going to a rink.
Yeah, and I know Hoppy and Joe Smith, I believe, talked about a bunch of like just kind of like out there ideas for things that they could do. I think that was on Fellowship of the Rink. So I don't know if it was the last episode before, but like go check that out. Hoppy had a lot of like they were really out there ideas, but it was like, but I agree. Like I think you just have to do something more fun, because I don't think it can't go away because there's too much sponsorship money there.
Yeah.
But I think as you and I talked about after the Four Nations, like I think just like being an all-star, I think has kind of lost meaning to what it used to mean. Like it used to be like on your like when you're a Hall of Fame, like this guy was a 2-time Cup winner, one-time Selkie winner.
Man, they actually played,
and he's a 5-time All-Star. But now it's like, does it matter? Like because now it's every team has to have an all-star, so it's like
when Owen Nolan picked the corner to get the hat trick, like I remember cheering as hard as like I would cheer for my own team, because as like, and I was probably like 11 or 12 or something like that, but like I would remember it was just such an intense game.
Yeah.
And like Stevie Y, like he didn't want to lose those all-star games, right? Like no.
Yeah, so I think it's lost its luster on the players. Like I think the fans are still going to tune in because it's just frankly, it's a pretty dead time of year for sports. So, like, you have football's usually done. The NBA All-Star Game is usually around the same time, but that might be more boring than
I
NHL.
love how, like, one of the Ball brothers was, like, rapping. The one who didn't make the NBA was, like, rapping, and everyone just, like, just turn off the NBA All-Star Game and turn on the freaking Four Nations right now, because Canada and the United States are duking it out.
I think what I'll agree with here is, like, I don't think they can never do it again. It's not feasible, but they do need to find a way to just make it different. Like, do something unique with it. Like, I still think the skills competition is super fun, like seeing hardest shot and guys pick corners and
they did skills. Just like send even some of the younger guys. Like I know it's all stars, but like whatever. Send some of the younger guys who are still names. Like the Ovechkin, he's paid his dues. He doesn't have to go back to these things.
Or even if it like honestly, if each team's like their best, like U21 prospects, like just do something to get fans excited to tune in. Like I think most fans are excited about their futures. Like how could
or just like a prospect. Like I mean, but then it's not NHL All Stars, but like it doesn't.
So then and then maybe what is that the AHL Star game? But I don't know. Like there's something different they have to do. I'm glad I'm not the one that's come up with that solution though. But it's like I said, it's only every other year.
John Scott saved it one year, or the fans who voted for him saved it one year.
But again, what made it fun that year is because enforcer John Scott was there, right?
Yeah,
a guy who actually wanted to try because like this is probably the one time in my life I'm going to have a stage to do something.
Yeah, and Gary just wanted to blackball him. Oh my god.
Yeah. So, next one here. This is from Burnsy, aka the Mucho Dinero on X. A little bit of a bold one here. He prefaces saying this would probably upset a lot of people. These are the kind of takes we're looking for, so thank you for submitting. He says, I don't care about the state tournament. I think I left out a word there, attendance numbers, and I think we should collectively stop boasting about them all the time. I care about the hockey being played, nothing more, nothing less.
Hey, I now that like I'm here and like I go to it every year, I really don't care about the numbers because like you go there, you see them, it's whatever. I think it's more so just like that like Minnesota defensive, like hockey's are like we are the state of hockey, and this is why, because a lot of people are like, oh, Minnesota never won a Stanley Cup, and you're like, bitch, you see the attendance numbers for high school hockey? Like this is so I think it's more of just like it's a point in an argument to the outsiders who are poking and don't know how special it actually is. But like now that I'm here, I get it. Like I could give a fuck about attendance numbers as long as there's good hockey because I'm going and watching the games or I'm watching them here on the broadcast. But I think it's just something that like I said, you guys can use as an argument point against those who are saying that Minnesota's actually not the state of hockey because the Wild haven't done shit. Right?
Yeah, but I think to your point, like that is what's important about it. Is like this is the reason that we're the state of hockey. It's like they're like
high school and college.
We're grown ass adults that are like excited to go watch high school.
Dude, I can't even drink beer.
Yeah, and I think that's what's remarkable about it too. Is like you are like there have been crowds for state championship games that have like 20,000 plus people, and there's no alcohol there, and it's some of the best hockey crowds you will ever be a part of and see. Like the one that always really sticks out to me. This is I don't even know if you were here, but it was Benilde St. Margaret's Joey Bennick, I believe, was the player. I think I might be misremembering, but I know Benilde was a team. One of their players scored like 5 goals in the state championship game, and it was like this back and forth game, and it was like it made national headlines, and like it's until you go to a game, like it's hard to understand like the impact. Like I think in like when we were talking about it last week, I think we compared a little bit like to how Canadians get very excited about the World Juniors and the
like
crowds
the Memorial
that gets. Yeah, and like those kind of things. That's what it is for Minnesotans. Like it's one of the coolest high school sports tournaments probably in the country outside of like I'm sure there's there's probably a big one for each sport.
Well, I would say like
but
it's for hockey, it's like what the South is for high school football.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think it helps, I think, just bring perspective to like, you look at, we're guys we were talking about today on the trade deadline, Brock Besser and Brock Nelson.
They've all played.
Like these are guys that played in the state championship and like high school hockey in Minnesota made them who they are, got them to where they are today. So I think
a ton of pro players like around the world, those didn't even make the NHL, but who were playing pros in other leagues respectively, like from Minnesota, they all played at this level. And it's like, it's such high level. Because again, in Canada, the only high level high school hockey is prep school right now. And yeah, they're pushing kids junior A and they're being drafted to the dub and like the CHL. But like you put a fucking Canadian prep school team against like a top high school Minnesota team, or they're not even close.
Yeah. So like I can see, whereas like if you're a longtime Minnesotan where it's like, oh yep, they had 19,000 there again.
I hear about it every
more
year,
than Winnipeg. Like I get it, but like I think it's cool for the world to see. Like, I think the other thing too is like for 99.9% of these players that play in this tournament,
this is the biggest crowd they're ever going to play against.
It's the biggest crowd and probably the biggest game they will ever play of hockey in their life. And I think that's like, it is like, I think even if they, they get slaughtered for, like there were some teams that lost, by 6-7 goals today, they for the rest of their life be like, I got to play a state tournament game in front of 10,000. If you're single A, it's probably 10,000. Double A, it's a sellout crowd. Like I got to play in front of a sellout crowd at NHL arena. Like that's a really cool memory for them too.
Hell yeah, dude! And like the atmosphere, it's nuts. It's crazy.
Yeah. Next one here from Ben Lewandowski 44, saying this is the year that the Kings finally beat the Oilers in round 1.
Oh, I would love nothing more. I would love nothing more.
Yeah, it's weird that the Kings can't get through the Oilers because I think the Kings like historic like at least for the last probably like 10 years play a pretty similar game to the Wild where like they're not a high octane offense team, but they play such a good structure defensively, and we've seen how that's worked really well
for dude. As soon as they acquired him, it was like
Danault and Kopitar, like, and they have like even look at their blue line like this year, it's like Gavrikov and Mikey Anderson, like not these big name guys, but it's a lot of these responsible players that play really good defensively, and like we've seen how well that's worked for the Wild, like with Berdine and Eck, like being able to sometimes take McDavid and Draisaitl and those guys out of the game. It's like I don't know what it is, but like these guys get to the playoffs and just can't get through those guys. But yeah, I think we're seeing that they're getting a little bit more offense this year. They have some pieces in the lineup. Obviously, Fiala's been a big part of that, but I think for the Oilers, like to our point earlier, like they need to find a goalie they can trust. Like Skinner hasn't been great this year. I don't even know who their backup is right now. I don't think he's been particularly good either.
They haven't had a goalie since fucking the end of Mike Smith's career.
Yeah.
Right? Because Dubnyk was not good there. It took him leaving to become better because he hated it there. That's the one thing that's held him back, man. That's the one thing that's held him back. All right, what else we got here?
Got a couple more here. This one from Horses in Hockey. This was...
I love Ryan Donato. I love Ryan Donato.
This is like another proposal, like, what is he making right now, cap-wise? Like, he's a guy, I think, like this is the weird ones. Like, I think he...
$2 million?
Yeah. So he's making $2 million. I think he's like 16 5-on-5 goals this year or something. I think he has more than...
What the hell?
a lot of others. Yeah, he's got 46.
46 points this year. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of like it's a little bit of like of what's the Kyle Brodziak, like the year he scored 20 some at the Wild. Like someone eventually has to score, but like, you know, we saw Ryan Donato the year they acquired him for Charlie Coyle from the Bruins. Like he had a really nice stretch with the Wild. Like
16 points in 22 games.
Yeah, so he was pretty good there, and like we've seen flashes from him. Like this is a guy, like, you know, not to say I would give him a first for him, but like it baffles that a guy like this will probably only get moved for like a 4th round pick. Like this is where the trade deadline doesn't make sense. Like,
well, this is where like a Stanley Cup team who can like get this guy in for cheap, he will help you in the playoffs.
Yeah, so
he
like,
will give you secondary scoring 100%.
Yeah, like if they could somehow make that $2 million work, like I don't think he is like I think he's better than a lot of the other options that they currently have. But again, like I don't know, like the Wild we're really interested in signing him. I haven't really heard his name as a guy mentioned to the Wild, but would not be something I would be like opposed to by any means.
Nyquist came back. Let's bring Ryan Donato back.
And then
Darren Drager.
So Darren Drager of TSN. I think it was on an audio clip. I wasn't able to clip it, but I just kind of read. Suggested the Leafs trade. It was their like 3 best prospects. So it was is it Liam Greentree? Is he one of them?
Yep.
And there was like 2 others, like basically 3 of their like top 4 prospects, sending all of them to the St. Louis Blues for Braden Shen, and then follow that up by suggesting, but I'm not sure if that's enough. Speaking
like,
to the Leafs side of
like,
things,
bro, like this ain't Braden Shen from 3 years ago, and even so, like
his numbers this year aren't even good. He's got like I don't even think he's like half a point a game. Right? I think he's in like a little bit of a scoring streak right now. He's in like a 4-game point streak, but he's got 38 points in 62 games. But like this guy,
this is going to be his worst season in a long time. Well, I mean, last year 46 points, 20 goals though.
But again, like, would you rather have Braden Shen or Ryan Donato? Like,
yeah, because he's 33. What, Donato's 27?
Yeah, and I believe he has like 2 years left at like, I think it's like a pretty like hefty cap hit. I think
6
too.
something. I want to say.
Yeah, like it's not cheap. So like either you have to take all that on, or now you have like, can you retain that? Like
6.5. Yup.
Yeah, I think for like expiring 2028. So still like 2 more seasons. So like
they love Braden Shen, good player, but like he's got a lot of miles on him.
Yeah, Easton Cowan was one of the other players that was like thrown out there. So I don't know if there's any like credibility to it. Like I said, I haven't listened to the clips. So I don't know.
Oh, Greentree's a Kings prospect?
Okay, well, not Greentree. I think I was mixing him up with Easton Cowan, but there was like 2 others. But I don't remember what the players were. But like, I was just like, I think it'd be kind of hilarious if Toronto did it because it's Toronto, and everyone would just clown them for it. But
they'd become further.
I know Toronto's like the Canada's version of the New York Yankees, but like, as a Wild fan, I think like we can feel a lot of empathy with Leafs fans. Like we have like the only difference is the Leafs have been miserable since their existence.
Well, and have had way better teams. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but like they have the same issues of like really passionate fan base, really knowledgeable fan base, sell out every home game, bounce in the first round every year.
Yeah,
like so I could empathize.
I feel like
with them
they have
in that
higher
way.
expectations.
Yeah.
Though.
Just because of the market.
No, because of the team. Not even because of the market. Like, the market, when it was bad, dude, like, people were clowning on the Leafs nationwide just as much as, like, they were clowning on Ottawa. And if anything, they were like, at least Ottawa's getting done with just, like, Erik Karlsson and everybody else. You know, like, putting everybody on his back. Whereas, like, the Leafs, when Shanahan employed the Shanahan plan and it worked to an extent of building the team, dude, even I was like, I hate the Leafs, but like they should be doing better. The fact that like the NHL rigged the freaking draft lottery so he would get so that they would get Matthews and the Canucks didn't. And the Canucks didn't even get Line. They didn't get anybody. Thank God they didn't get Puljujärvi though. Holy crap, that would have been. We got I think Oldievi.
But I think the bigger conversation here too is that I think we've seen this happen in years past, where like when your division starts to add some bigger names, like in Florida's case, they went on right? Are they same division? Florida and Toronto. It's Florida, Toronto, Boston, right? That's usually like the top 3 in that one, or am I wrong on that? I can never the Eastern Conference divisions I always get so
yes.
So they're with the Panthers and the Lightning. So like we just like the 2 big trades we talked about the top were Florida adding Seth Jones and then Toronto adding Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand. It's not for the Leafs. You're going, oh shit. The 2 teams chasing us just made huge upgrades to their team. It almost like kind of forces your hand like, shit, we got to do something.
And like the Atlanta, like the Senators are like, I know they're like pretty far behind, but like they'll steal points. They'll steal points from you.
Yeah,
down the stretch.
And I think you look at teams like the Senators, the Red Wings, the Canadiens, like all these teams are battling for for wild card spots.
Especially with the Devils like potentially
Devil-
not going to be in it
and
anymore.
and the Blue Jackets are pushing. Like, this is going to be an arms race in the East. So, like, I do wonder if the trades by the two Florida teams have now, like, are pushing the Leafs harder and harder to make a move. And I'm interested to see if they'll overreact to those trades by doing something crazy. Like, I have heard Shen to the Leafs a lot, but, like, when I saw what it would take to, like, get that, like, for those that don't understand, like, kind of the main, this would be like the Wild, I guess, like, let's just say Braden Chen, for example, like, trading away, like, Ogren, Yurov, and Buium. Like, I don't know if their Toronto prospects are quite at that level, but, like, basically taking the three best players of their future and, like, for this 33-year-old guy for $6.5 million to hopefully get you out of the first round of the playoffs. So, yeah, I don't know.
I think Levi or someone in the chat was saying, like, why can't we get Stamkos? I don't think Stamkos is the answer for the Minnesota Wild right now.
Money.
Yeah. Urban, yeah. 100%. 100%. What else do we got here? The Leafs still don't have enough size and playoff-style players. What are you talking about? They have Ryan Reeves. But yeah, money's the biggest thing. I like Donato as a Band-Aid. What else?
There's a question about Spurgeon. Why can't they trade him? He has why can't they trade Spurgeon? He has a full no move clause, so he'd have to agree. And I also think he's been their best defenseman when he's been in the lineup this year.
Yeah,
and
he's just gonna retire when his contract's done. Probably.
Like, obviously, we'd like to see more of him in the playoffs, but, like, not objectively speaking at all. Like, I know Brock Faber's got a lot of hype, but I talked about him last week. Like, he's in a pretty big slump right now, and, like, Jared Spurgeon, for the most part, I would say, like, 80% of his games here have been very, very good. And, like, he's your captain, and, like, if you trade Spurgeon, you need to get a very high-end piece to replace him, and I don't think they're going to get that.
Again, why don't the Wild go out and get a good forward that is young? We have young forwards cooking, developing, and no money.
Every team would like to go out and get a good young forward that's young.
For sure.
That's tough to get. Let's see.
Levi saying, I think if the LTIR someone if you're going to try to make playoffs and get past the first round. Well, that's the thing. People keep talking about that on social media as well. Like, are the Wild going to go full Chicago or are they going to go full Tampa?
Well, I think we talked about this. Like, we've seen, like, Kaprizov, when he came back to the playoffs after injury, wasn't good. And, like, I think
he needs a few reps.
And I think he's admitted as such. Like, I'd like to have a couple games, like, get my feet back under me, get up to game speed. And, like, this isn't like, missing preseason and coming in. This is the playoffs. Like, this is very physical. It's way faster paced. It's intense. Like, you're coming off a guy who has what I believe is either a groin or hamstring injury. Yeah. Like, you want to be able to get your legs back in shape. And it's not like this whole time he's been out, he's been able to, like, condition because he's healing his leg, right? So
yeah, he's been skating.
So, to me, like, the Wild's trade deadline is we are getting Joel Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov back before the playoffs. Like, that in itself is a trade deadline acquisition,
and
like,
that's what Joe Smith was talking about on the Fellowship of the Ring too. He's like, he's like, this might not be what Wild fans want, but it's acquisitions that they haven't had for a while, and the team's still been chugging along, winning games. Hopefully, with them, they'll have a few blunders here and there, but, like, hopefully once they're going healthy, playoffs hit, and it's all systems go.
Yeah, I would much rather have peace of mind knowing that I'm going into the playoffs with Kaprizov, Ek, and Brodin, even if it's like 90%, over them coming in, having not played a regular season game, but we have Brock, we have Brock Nelson too. Like, that doesn't move the needle for me enough. I'd rather have those guys healthy than those guys at 70% and
not to say that Brock Nelson is this player. But, like, we don't need Hansel right now. That is not the answer. It's not the answer.
But honestly, I think that's what he could turn out to be. Like, I think there's some name value there. And, like, I'm not saying he's had a bad season, but I think he's an underwhelming season. But I think there's always going to be this, like, well, the team's not as good. Well, why isn't the team as good? Because Brock Nelson hasn't been as good. Yeah. Like, their best players aren't as good as they used to be because they're old. And, like, that's Lou Ramos' shtick. Like, he likes these older players. He gives a lot of older players long deals. So I'm still out on him even in the offseason. Like, I don't think... I think he's past his prime and they're going to end up let someone else overpay him. I'd much rather go after a Besser at that point if you were dead set on adding a forward, a Dylan Cousins type. Like, I'd much rather have upside than banking on a 30. Yeah. I think he's like he's like 33 now. So
yeah, and Horodox, it theoretically, but it all depends on their season, right? Yeah. Like Yurov's KHL season doesn't end till the playoffs are going on.
He's also hurt,
and he's hurt.
So
and Buium, it depends how far Denver goes as well. So like if like theoretically 100%, but like I don't think. Well, we might see Buyam. We're not seeing Urov, I don't think this year.
But I think that's a good point too. Like, do you want to go at all these like, hey, I think especially on the defensive side, which I don't think they're looking to add on defense, but like, hey, like if you think
they can get him some reps, if they can get him even like 2 games at the end of the season, which again, like that's pushing it with Denver.
But like kind of like what Faber ended up doing, right? Like
no, but yeah, no, exactly.
And like no one thought Brock Faber was going to be a big part of the Wild's playoff series, and like. We had, I think, I know on Sound the Foghorn we talked a lot about, like, I did not like John Klingberg. I thought that trade was terrible. The guy was, like, the worst defenseman in the NHL. Brock Faber comes in.
Plays better than him.
Well, no, they ended up on a pairing and didn't get scored on in this, was it either a 6 or 7 game series? Like, I don't even think, including the regular season, I don't think Brock Faber's on the ice for a 5-on-5 goal again. So, like, not to say Zeev Buyam's going to come and able to do the same thing, but if there's even
they can give him rep and be, okay, you can play at this level, at least we have you in our back pocket.
But, like, could Zeev Buyam come in and be better than John Merrill? Like, maybe.
Yeah. He just needs reps, though. Because, like, you go from college, even college playoffs to NHL, like, I'm sorry, it's a huge jump.
Yeah.
Like, only... And maybe he's just that elite where, like Quinn Hughes, like Brock Faber, like Cale Makar, they can just come in and be like, this is my speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but, like, you got to give the guy at least 1 game, right? Leave us in this roster's bad when healthiest roster overachieved.
Disagree.
Yeah, I don't think when the roster's healthy it overachieved.
We talked about last week. They've had 6 games this year where they've had all their players through like the early December. They were the best team in the NHL, and it wasn't like they didn't have crazy XG numbers. They didn't have a crazy high like.
Yeah, that's just negativity. That's just negativity because the season hasn't gone perfect. Let's be honest.
Like I think it's easy. Like, oh, this is the same old Wild, but like. It's been
no, it's not the same old Wild because if the Wild were this injury riddled and it was the same, they would have had a season like last year. Yeah. If anything, like they've had guys who've like played to their capability this year. Where last year a lot of people underachieved and they were injured, and now it's like the guys who aren't injured are playing to their.
And it's even like in the type of injuries too. It's like with Evason, it was was a Freddie Goudreau injury or a Marcus Johansson injury or. A John Merrill injury. Like, but this year it's Kaprizov, it's Eriksson Ek, it's Brodin, it's Spurgeon. It's like it's consistently their top 6 guys, which maybe that's a different story. Like when your best players are getting hurt, like is there something more to dive into there? Maybe, but like if this team has their opening night lineup, I think
they're a hard team to play. It's like, are they a team that's going to outscore you every night or be like an offensive threat outside? Like
they're the best defensive team in the league for the first 2-3 months of this, and that's their identity. But
that's okay. That wins you games.
But when you lose Eriksson Ek and Brodin, who are like the core of your defensive identity, you're going to start struggling in games as we've seen lately. And now you take Kaprizov out of the mix, who's your best offensive play driver. You have a little bit of a struggle out of, Faber and Middleton, who, because of Brodin's injury, are probably taking on heavier minutes, more difficult matchups that they used to disperse between because they're maybe trying to keep some of those minutes away from an older Spurgeon and an experienced Declan Chisholm. Like, you're going to have struggles. So, like it's only 3 injuries right now, but it's 3 such huge injuries. Like, I don't think you can overreact to it.
So I like, you go back and watch our preview show, too, if you want proof of it. Like, I was the one who said that the Wild would probably miss, but I was super high on Nashville. I drank that Kool-Aid, right? And I think that's what kind of gave people the blinders. I also said that, like, Winnipeg was going to be better than the Wild, where a lot of people thought Winnipeg was going to be in the same position as the Wild and maybe not even make the playoffs, right? So like, I don't know if that's the best argument.
I'm relatively certain I said if they're healthy, they're a 100-point team. If they're not, they might.
Hoppy was on the bubble. Hoppy said the Wild too. If they're healthy, they'd be there, and they're not healthy, and they're still 3rd in the division.
And they're still flirting with a 100-point season. So
yeah. Anyways, last comment, and then we'll wrap things up. Guys, thank you so much, by the way. The chat's been absolutely buzzing. We love every single one of your guys' comments. This has been awesome that you guys have been like interacting with each other as we've been like recording the podcast and been going through like things that we wanted to talk about. But you guys have contributed a lot to the show as well, and it's just like it's so much more fun podcasting in person, right? Yes. Just a different vibe than like dealing with sometimes delay or like freezing or just like looking at a screen the whole time. So thanks for coming out, Brett. Appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for everyone who tuned in the chat. Like I said, if you'll be at the state tournament on Friday, or
we'll both be there. Hoppy will be there too.
Yeah, like literally, like I am always on my phone, so like literally just tweet me like, hey, I'm in section 117.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll probably all go for lunch somewhere, I imagine, depending on what time you get there.
Yeah, my dad's gonna be there too, so we'll see. But yeah, I think we'll have some fun.
Hoppy and I will be at Tom Reed's before it starts having I don't know, either mimosas, Bloody Marys, and breakfast sandwiches. And then we'll probably go somewhere for lunch too. So yeah,
That's actually a really good idea.
oh dude, two Bloody Marys before
Well, 'cause
the state tourney.
I have to wait.
That's-
My girlfriend has to drop her car off at the car dealership like 8 a.m. and we were gonna wait. But I'm like, oh, what if we just went to Tom Reed's,
Hell yeah, dude.
have a mimosa and a breakfast sandwich? Because like I said, can't drink there. So
2 Bloody Marys before the tourney. That's my thing.
I can't do blood. I could do mimosa though.
All right, there you go.
Or like
there
a
you
screw
go.
up or something. But
Yeah, no, a good screwdriver in the morning.
all right.
All right, well, Brett, what do you got coming? Do you have anything coming up on your blog? Do you have any new player cards?
Nothing new on the blog. So that's a little dull right now. I'm just this with the puppy coming. My the free time I had has been very dedicated to getting ready for that.
But check it out regardless, because when he starts writing again, then
Yes.
you'll already be subscribed.
Yes, and I will probably do something fun like some playoff predictions, or like I know there was a comment asking to like compare the Wild's lines to like the rest of the league. I will probably do something along those lines in the off season for sure, like when there's nothing going on. Like I will find some time to carve that out. But yeah, player cards from last night went out today, and then I did finally catch up on all the ones that I missed from a while ago. So
Here they are on screen. I'll put them in the chat as well. Go follow Brett. And yeah, so we said we'll be on the state tournament Friday. You'll be at Big Beer Week Saturday up in Big Lake. Lupulin Brewing again. Big shout to Lupulin Brewing. I mean, it's an honor to be able to have brewed a beer with them a couple years ago, and again bringing it back for the state tournament. Get it while it's there. It's on tap for a little bit, and if you like it, please buy a 4-pack. Take a couple cans home. Hey, if the sooner they sell out, it means, hey, we can bring it back again for the state tournament, and maybe we brew more of it next year and actually get into some stores. I will be, not Friday, obviously, because we'll be watching hockey all day, but all day tomorrow, I will be streaming jiu-jitsu tournaments and mixed martial arts on my second channel, the City Life Project, and then all day Saturday, UFC 313, as well as, if you guys want to stay up all night like the psycho that I am, there's a great Japanese promotion, Pancrase as well, superior rule set, soccer kicks, stomps, way better rules than UFC. But anyways, that's what I'm up to this weekend. Dude, a jam-packed sports-filled weekend. I'm stoked.
Should be good.
I'm stoked. Anyways, thanks for coming out, Brett. We got to do this more often. This is fun.
For sure.
All right, last word goes to you.
Have a great night, and hope to see some of you guys in the next couple days here. Cheers.